I'm Mint Salad, and I saw The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It is directed by Stephen Norrington, written by James Dale Robinson. If you haven't seen this movie, I will spoil it for you. This is requested by a Patreon. You would like to fast track a movie review? Patreon.com/ASEPresents. On with the review. This movie takes place in 1899, and it's based off of a comic book. And I have to say, right off the bat, that this is a movie where you're supposed to turn your brain off. You're supposed to enjoy the epicness, because if you think too hard about the story, it's not really that good. But everything that happens on the screen is adhering to the rule of cool, so keep that in mind when you watch this movie. There's a world war about to happen. Uh-oh, some things happen. We gotta get Allan Quartermain. We gotta get a bunch of people together. And Allan Quartermain's like, nah man, I'm too old. And guess who Allan Quartermain is? He's Sean Connery. I saw that this is his last film role, and also his last role ever before he died in 2020. RIP Sean Connery. But oh my goodness, it's Sean Connery! And he speaks so differently than I thought he would. When he's James Bond, he speaks James Bondly, but I can see the core in James Bond to where he is now. He's evolved from James Bond to now, and James Bond, he had like, oh yes, it is I. He doesn't have as much of a deep weirdness to his voice like in this version does. He sounded more British, but with more of a Scottish undertone, versus this, I don't know what he's doing right now. Maybe that's his normal voice, maybe he's doing a voice, but he's talking like this. I am Sean Connery, and this is how I speak. Does he speak normally like this? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, Allan Quartermain. He doesn't want to help until a bunch of people try to assassinate him, and then he's able to like get him off really nice, and not quickly because he's an old man, but smartly and cleverly, kind of like a James Bond character would do. Honestly, Allan Quartermain gives me the vibes of both James Bond and Indiana Jones. Do you get what I mean by that? It's like a weird fusion of the two, and I like it. So he has escaped from the assassins, and then he's led into this cool room where there's a bunch of other different people. And this is the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, except for that there's a woman here, and she's a vampire, as it turns out. She's later shown as a vampire. And then there's this immortal man, and then you got this guy who's a really good captain. There are other ones, there's a couple few, but those that I just mentioned are the most memorable to me. From this point on, the plot goes from, okay, I'm starting to understand it, to, okay, is this just some excuse for cool stuff to happen? Because we have the ship where they're all going on, right? And then this captain's like, oh, let me get you on this other ship. And then it's just huge. It's massive. Like, where did it come from? How did it go from underwater all the way? There it is. I'm like, okay, it's a cool ship, but that's not practical at all. I'm just going to keep turning my brain off. There's a lot of cool little fight scenes where each of the characters use a power of theirs to disarm an enemy. Like, you got the chick who's like, oh, I don't need these guys to be saving me. Oh, and just starts nomming on them. And then there's the guy who gets shot with a lot of bullets, and it's shown that he's immortal. I like how it's not shown at the very beginning what their powers are, but it's shown within combat. A lot of cool fighting stuff happened. Gun. Although there's a lot of automatic weapons, and I like how Sean Connery's character, he's just like, what? Automatic weapons? What is going on? Wait, I should probably do it in his accent. What? What are all these automatic weapons? That's not him at all. What's up with all these automatic weapons? I'm also like, what's up with all these automatic weapons? It's 1899, there are automatic weapons during this time? And I guess it's supposed to be out of place, and then I'm like, wow, it seems like a lot of stuff is out of place, out of time, and it's just set in this time. It's like, okay, there's some limitations, but then there's like modern stuff. I'm like, where is this coming from? It seems like they're also going to work for M, but then it turns out that M's the bad guy, and they're trying to go against M, and so a bunch of people are trying to blow up Venice. But I'm like, bro, there's a bunch of water. What is that going to do? What are you going to do? Blow up the water canals? And the water's going to go everywhere. What do you think is going to happen? Everything's going to flood. Okay, cool, but what's the purpose of blowing up Venice? And then, oh, we're going to go to M. Oh my goodness, he turns out to be the guy. He's trying to get a bunch of people to force his work, and we gotta stop him. And the plot is kind of hard to decipher in some parts because it's like, okay, there's a lot of cool stuff, but I don't know how this works. Why does this need to happen in order for this to happen? And then it's like, okay, I guess at this point they're just throwing a bunch of stuff in to do a bunch of cool stuff, but it's ultimately a fun movie. And in the end, Allan Quartermain dies. I like the line where it's like, oh, Africa was going to save him. Well, he died because he wasn't in Africa. Africa didn't save him. Something more succinct like that was in the movie. It was a really fun movie. I enjoyed watching it. Let me know if you think of this movie. I think it's an interesting premise. There's definitely something there. The execution of this movie is very muddy because it seems to me that they're trying to do what Zack Snyder did with The Watchmen and take a comic book and adapt it and make it like a masterpiece. But this one just turned out very muddy, so you have to be really careful about doing stuff like that. You gotta kind of pick and choose, and not enough was picked and choose. I hear there's like some dark parts that didn't even show up at all in this movie, so I'm actually kind of happy for that. This movie's very campy, it's very fun, but you're not supposed to take it very seriously. Just have a good old time watching it. A lot of cool stuff happens, a ton of cool stuff happens, like explosions, cool stunts, like cool character moments happen in this movie. You got that guy who like transforms the guys, and that's a pretty cool guy. He goes big and then he goes small, and then he goes big and then small. It's like, I liked that. I think the graphics, I think they hold up well, although it's obvious 2003. It kind of holds up if you're like, okay, this is an art style. If you think of it like that, then it's nice. It still holds up. I would like to see a better remake of this movie with a more coherent plot and keep the awesome. Then that'll be a really cool movie. Now it's time for me to analyze the colors. It was very steely. A lot of cool steampunky tones for sure. A lot of cool colors. It was a lot of monochrome within like the silver range. And so it had like more of like a shine to it. And I think that contributed to the awesomeness. And then whenever there was color, it was always within the explosions, and that made it really cool. But the overall color palette of the movie is very dark and gritty, which is a strange contrast from the really fun nature of all the action. That's pretty cool. There wasn't anything I remember being warm in this movie, so it's not supposed to be a very happy movie. It's mostly supposed to be really cool, as supported in the cool tones, a cool tone blue majority of the shadows as well. I feel like the awesome stuff is brighter than the background, so you notice the awesome stuff more so than the background, and the background is just 1899 life. There's no, I don't know if there was electricity. Certainly no cars. There's a lot of stuff, but it was mostly candlelit. No point in this movie did I ever feel cozy, and that's because the colors didn't support it. Very beginning, it was more neutral of a color to establish that Allan Quartermain is just kind of in his environment. He's living day to day. He's not particularly sad or happy. He's just living his life. It's supposed to represent kind of what his life is like. And then towards the end, very, very end, when he's back in Africa, but he's in the ground, then it's colored blue-ish because it's sad. The sad is really gone. There wasn't a ton of variation in the colors, I will say that. And because of that, it's just generally gives me a cool vibe of the movie. It's just supposed to be cool, action-y, fun awesomeness. Nothing that I saw was overly saturated. The blue of that Captain Nemo's suit is probably the most saturated thing I've seen, and it's not that saturated. And I think it's supposed to be that color because he's like a strong blue. He's a strong leader, and I believe it. And also the colors of everybody else that they're wearing. We have the chick, she's wearing a lot of red. Oh, she's a vampire, who knew? And then we got the immortal guy, he's wearing a lot of gray. Oh wow, it turns out he's a bad guy, he's turning on everybody. Oh my goodness, he's like a morally gray character, ha ha ha. And then Allan Quartermain, he has a lot of whiteness, so he has like a lot of cleanness to his personnel, but he's also got some darkness, which means he's got like a dark past that he's just wants to get away from, but he's generally morally good-ish. And then the other characters, they're more so morally gray. I didn't really feel anything from those other characters. Color-wise, I just felt like they were all kind of bland. But the main ones that you should really remember about, they had strong color profiles. That has been Color Talk with Mint Salad. I'm gonna do these all the time, so let me know what you think of this section in the comments below. I gotta give this movie because it's very fun, but the story is I'll give it's a solid 5 out of 10. If you like this review, watch another on the platform that likes at $20 deals, patreon.com/ASEPresents, one movie review per 1 month. Go to Slate Tree, but the daily grindness of all them daily movies, so go here. And until next time, in salad sauce, you'll serve my salad croutons at bacon bits. Now I'm gonna go pay my respects to Allan Quartermain. So I'm gonna walk to Africa. Goodbye!